Hello and welcome to the platform. This is a show where we get to have a breakfast date with a champion. On today's episode, we're joined by 4 bright participants, 2 university students and 2 high school students. They join us to ask burning questions to our inspiring character. And leading the conversation is higher education specialist Fanele Chester. She joins us to share her expertise with our guests and unpack details that you are most probably interested in. Stay with us as we give you a platform.
Hello, my name is Zandisile Hau. I'm from Babane in the Kingdom of Eswatini.
Hello, my name is 16-year-old Ayan Ziswagama. I'm from Babane in the Kingdom of Eswatini.
Hello, my name is Mugele Dube. I'm from Eswatini, Babane, the capital city. And I feel like I have to specify that I'm from St. Francis High School because my principal once said, once says St. Francis, always says St. Francis.
Hello, my name is Kyle Tutigiza. I'm from Eswatini.
I'm currently a student at the University of Eswatini, pursuing my master's degree in environmental resource management.
I am currently a second-year Bachelor of Commerce student at the University of Eswatini. I'm an independent distributor for Herbalife, and I'm also the president of UNESCO Waloseni Rotary Club.
I'm in the writing space. Okay, I like to say arts in general because I don't want to box it. I write novels and anthologies on Wattpad, and I'm also a poet, and I also paint. I do recycled painting. It's where you break pieces of glass and you arrange them into a portrait. So I do that in order to recycle.
I love to read and do charity work.
During my spare time, I like to read. I also like to write. I'm a big fan of writing, I also do a lot of hiking and swimming during my spare time.
I love to read. I love being outdoors in nature as I am an environmentalist. I also love hanging out with family, my brothers more especially, and I love to listen to music.
I'm currently enrolled as a student at St. Mark's High School, but I'm looking to study financial economics with a focus on financial accounting and macroeconomic analysis.
I want to meet Fanele because I want to hear her perspective about being able to pursue a professional career while also running an NGO in Eswatini.
I want to meet Fanele because upon completing high school in the next few months, I plan to enroll for the International Baccalaureate Diploma at United World College. So I believe she's going to assist me in terms of getting to know about scholarships and how better I can articulate my application into UWC.
I want to meet Fanele because she's a very educated woman, and I like to say I'm at the start of my academic career, so I want to know about any obstacles she might have faced in her academic career and how she overcame those.
I want to meet Fanele because I'm a huge fan of her work, and I'm a huge fan of people that empower the youth. So I believe that meeting Fanele Chester would be a huge learning curve for me.
I'm definitely looking forward to interacting with the other inspiring young people that we have at this table, and also getting to hear important insights from Fanele Chester about the NGO space in the country and also her work in the United Nations Eswatini.
First of all, I'm hoping for exposure. Then I also want to broaden my perspective because right now we kind of have the mentality that if I tried something and it didn't work out the first time, then I should just quit. So I just need her to open my mind. Yeah.
I hope to network a lot, and I also hope to learn from Fanele Chester and the other participants in the show.
And with that said, what an honor it is to be seated at this table with our lovely guests that are joining us today. Thank you so much for making time to come here, and address some pertinent issues in our society. And most importantly, we'd like to welcome the champion of the day, which is Fanele Chester. Thank you so much for making time to join us here, and most importantly, share your expertise with us and our guests that have come to ask you some burning questions today. Just to kick it off, we do have that bowl that you'll be picking from. We have questions in there that will just be an icebreaker to get to know you a little better. Please do read the question out loud and respond to the questions. You can pick maximum 3.
Okay, let's start with the first question. Oh, I picked it. What is the most embarrassing moment you've ever experienced, and how did you handle it? Most embarrassing moment. I don't really have a lot of embarrassing moments. I think maybe, I don't know if I would call this embarrassing, but when I was interviewing for the United World College Youth Scholarship, when I finished my Form 5, I was extremely nervous. I was very, very nervous. But I think that I handled it by being very clear about why I wanted the scholarship in the first place, and I think that helped me calm down my nerve. When I say I was nervous, I was close to tears. But I was able to sort of gather myself and come back to what the purpose of that interview was. Yes. Let's see. What is one fun or unusual fact about yourself that most people don't know? Fun or unusual fact? My idea of fun is hiking. So anything that involves me being out in the mountains, out in the bush, I tell my students that for fun, I go to the mountains, and they're like, not a mall, not something. I'm like, no, when I'm outside in nature under the stars, no phone, sleeping on a tent, that's like the best thing. I feel very, very free and connected.
And lastly.
Last question. If you could relive any day from your past, which day would it be and why? I think there are many moments that I appreciate, but if I were to choose a recent memory, I applied to Oxford in July this year, just on a whim. And I think afterwards it set in that this is the #1 university in the world. So I was like, oh, okay. If I don't get in, I'm going to feel very bad. So that day I got the email that I was accepted was absolutely amazing. I was shouting. The same reaction that probably all of you got when you get something that you really wanted. So I think that was very exciting. I mean, now I have to do the work. But I think that moment was... It just reminded me of when I was finishing high school and applying to things and getting accepted.
Oh, wow. You know, you carry so many beautiful stories, but one that we know you for the most is, of course, the Knowledge Institute. Can we please share with us what inspired you to start TKI?
Yes. So TKI was started in February 2013. I think by then I'd already known that I was very passionate about education. I wanted to do something that is not teaching. I was very clear that I don't want to teach, but I wanted to be in the education space. And I was still in university at the time, and I was already paying for some students' school fees because the paper always announces, you know, the top students in the country, grade 7, and then they write the stories about those who need help. So I'd already had all of those accumulated experiences. So when I was about to graduate, I think I was inspired to continue the work that I'd already been doing as a student, and I figured, let me just start an NGO as a vehicle that would allow me the space to continue working on something I was passionate about.
And I think that, you know, more of those stories will come, and we'll get to know a little more about Fanele Chester as we go on. But we do have a panel of guests here at our round table, and they do have some burning questions that they do have for you. I hope you can handle it. Firstly, we'll start off with Mugelo, who will just briefly reintroduce herself and then take it away with her question.
Good morning. My name is Mugele Duve. I'm a former student of St. Francis High School. And to start you off, I'd like to ask that many students usually face challenges when they're getting into higher education, such as finance. How does your work address this issue?
Financing is probably the main thing that TKI focuses on because it's directly tied to access to education, right? And at the same time, it's a topic that we don't really discuss, that you have to pay to get an education. We just assume that you get good grades, you apply, and then magically everything works out for you. So we really started TKI as a way of tackling the access to finance. And the way that we did that is we found all of the organizations and the funds available for paying for education, and we curate them, and we then ensure that the people who need to know what these options are know that information, firstly, and also know what it takes to get access to this financing in terms of any credibility or credentials that you have to be eligible for that. So that is really at the heart of TKI, is unlocking the finance to education in the country. And I think the last thing would be the activism we've done around encouraging more corporates in Eswatini to fund scholarships, because when we started in 2013, that was not a thing. Financing for education was really a mandate of government alone. And yet the employers who would want educated students were not playing a part in financing that. So I'm very happy that in the over 10 years now, most of the corporates in the country are contributing to scholarships in some function or another.
And we also joined by Kaya, who also has a question directed to Fanele.
Morning, ma'am. I'm Kyle Tudigeza. Firstly, I would like to know the challenges that you faced in scaling youth initiatives, like the award-winning SASA platform, and how you have addressed them.
Yes. So SASA is a platform that we wanted it to be similar to other platforms in other parts of the world, like the Common Application in the US or UCAS in the UK, whereby it's a one-stop shop for applying to local institutions in the country, so that you're not, as a student, having to submit 10 applications for 10 institutions, which all are essentially asking you for the same thing. So the challenges that we face are very similar to the challenges we face financing TKI as a whole, is that we don't have a good philanthropic community in the country that funds the works of NGOs, unless you're getting that money from outside the country, from larger philanthropic organizations. So the reason why we entered SASA into the MIT competition was because we needed access for funding to hire engineers to build the platform for us. That is an ongoing challenge, because we're a country that has a lot of needs in different areas. If I'm approaching a corporate and asking for funding to support my NGO, and a school is approaching a corporate to ask for funding to build a classroom, the classroom is going to get built, but my NGO is not going to get funded. So I think there is still a very big need in developing the philanthropic community in the country to fund different kinds of social initiatives that are started by individuals or even started by NGOs. And at the moment, that is very much a nascent industry. It's not a big industry. Yeah.
Well, good morning, ma'am. I am Ziswa Gama from St. Mark's High School. And my question would be, education is very central to Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which speaks more about inclusive and equitable education. My question, therefore, is how exactly does the Knowledge Institute contribute towards achieving SDG number 4, and what more can we as the young people of Eswatini do as means of supporting it?
Yes. So my earlier question around financing education speaks to your question. So most of the scholarships that we look for and that we advocate for Eswatini to have access to are targeted at the communities that would otherwise not have access to funding, right? So when we're talking about access to education or the lack thereof, that is different depending on different communities in the country. So we really try to ensure that the scholarships that we're able to look for are catering for the people who would otherwise not have access to funding to continue their education. And beyond that, we found that there are also niche communities that are even more left behind. For example, through the United World Colleges, we found a lot of refugee education. So we have a refugee camp in the country, and those people are not Eswatini citizens, which means they cannot apply for the government scholarship. So under UWC, refugees are able to apply for scholarship to do the IB and then continue on to university. And we also have been looking for scholarships that are targeted to other niche groups that are left behind in specific areas. So for example, although there's gender parity in the country with regards to girls and boys having access to secondary education, when you look at the performance of girls in STEM education or STEM subjects, they are falling behind the boys. So we try to ensure that we look for scholarships that are looking to empower girls who are strong in STEM so that they can inspire other girls to take up the subjects and excel in them. So our approach is really about ensuring that there is broad development and broad access to education for everyone. That being said, there are also a number of merit scholarships for the students who are not just from low-income backgrounds or who are from niche communities who have exacerbated access to education. And those merit scholarships are really good for the students who just have a knack for something. A couple of years ago, there was a student who was one of the best students in mathematics in the country. That was the only thing. He was not a low income. He was already a boy. It's maths, you know. It's a STEM subject. But he was so good in maths that when he did AS and A-level, he was able to write the A-level maths exam in 6 months and get 100%. He was just gifted. So we try to ensure that for the students who are like some of the best in the world, that they're still able to get opportunities that allow them to be in communities with other students like them and that allow them to grow their potential in that way.
So good morning. My name is Andisile Hau. I'm currently pursuing my master's degree at the University of Eswatini, specifically in environmental resource management. So my question is, as someone who has successfully balanced running an organization and pursuing a professional career, what advice would you give to someone who's starting an NGO in Eswatini?
Who also wants to get a job.
Yeah. Yes.
So I think that being a social entrepreneur requires a lot of commitment. I remember when I was starting TKI, I had no free Saturdays. Because on Saturdays, that's when I would be meeting with students. We used to have a leadership program for students for 6 months, and it would be on Saturdays. And Monday to Friday, I was at work. I worked for Real Image. Saturdays, I was working at TKI. So one of the things is that you need, if you're going to be a social entrepreneur, it has to be something that you care about enough to work 6 days a week, in this case, for example. If you don't have that commitment or that interest in that, I think that you will run out of steam because it takes a lot out of you to be able to do that. So the balance is just being aware that, you know, if you're employed and, you know, you have other responsibilities, that you need to show up and you need to respect your work. You need to respect employment, especially if your employment is funding the NGO, right? And then it means that you then have to find other ways in which you're fitting in what you care about. Thankfully, there's a lot of work that NGOs do, especially if you're working with young people that are outside of school hours, which tends to be on a Saturday. So that's how I manage the balance. But I think probably the most important thing that helped me was building a team. So when I started TKI in February of 2013, I was alone. By the time we registered the NGO, I think it was September of that year, I'd recruited people to work with, because I realized very quickly that this is not the kind of thing that I can do alone. I can't do it alone in terms of time, but I also can't do it alone in terms of skills. There are things that I'm very good at. There are things that my partners like Seputile Mhlongo, like Zwelakhe Dlamini, are much better off than me. So finding like-minded people, I think, also helps with that balancing. And it also helps with the outcomes of your NGO, because it's drawing from your collective intelligence and your collective energy.
Okay, thank you.
And Fanele, earlier on, I like that you mentioned that, you know, scholarships were predominantly meant to be funded for, like, by the government. Now, which leads me to the question that how can private organizations work with the government to increase scholarships, you know, recognizing the shared benefits of producing skilled graduates?
Okay, that's a really good question, because it allows me to bottom line what a scholarship is. A scholarship is money to pay for a service, right? Who is the service provider? Is the institution. So the best way that private companies or organizations can fund scholarships is to work directly with the institutions that will be the recipient of that money. By the way, guys, the scholarship does not come to you. The money doesn't come to you, it comes to your institution. So I'm really inspired by what the UNESCO Foundation has been doing for the past couple of years, which is partnering with specific corporates to fund scholarships at UNESCO for specific programs. So for example, REST Corporation has a scholarship program with UNESCO that is funding students who are studying engineering at UNESCO. So if you're an engineering student at UNESCO, specifically, not Scott or any of those places, although I'm sure they have similar programs, you can apply for the RES Foundation, for the RES Corporation Scholarship through the UNESCO Foundation. And I've been seeing similar programs such as, I think Standard Bank has a similar scholarship at UNESCO. And ESCOM also launched a scholarship to fund engineering specifically in the telecommunications space. Although for them, they haven't partnered with specific institutions, they are very clear about what program students can apply for with that program. So I think the institutions have to know that for them, why are they funding this? Are they funding it for a social cause, just to help the country? In which case, it can be a broad scholarship that can be based on need of financing. But if it's because they're trying to increase the talent in a specific industry, then they can partner with those institutions that provide those specific qualifications, so that students know that if I apply to ECOT, I can get a scholarship to study X program that is funded by that institution. And I'm hoping in the background that the scholarship comes with some internship opportunities as well with that same institution. So I think that the question of scholarship is funding, is entering with funding in a specific value chain, but that value chain is broad, right? So then that scholarship should be integrated with all the other aspects of that. And the financing should just be unlocking the access to that value chain for the students who otherwise would not have that opportunity.
As an educated woman, would you advise people to choose a career based on the income or for the passion that they have for it? And how does one strike a balance between the two?
I wish you could strike a balance easily. This is a question that I discuss with the students that I work with a lot. I'm recognizing that a lot of them come from families where, especially if they're getting a scholarship to study abroad, they'll be the first in their family to do that. Or if it's with regards to the United World Colleges scholarship, a lot of the students that we fund tend to be, some of them tend to be from very low income backgrounds, right? So I try to have a very frank conversation at the right time without putting pressure on the students that what you're going to find is that a lot of students who go and study abroad have to support their families back home, right? So for the first 10 years, it might be that you do something that allows you to earn an income so that you can support yourself and your family. And then after that, you can then do what you are passionate about if those two things are not aligned. So I'm more on the side of being pragmatic when you're choosing this, and then using hobbies to fulfill your passions, right? So that you have that balance. But the reality is, in most of our families in Eswatini, we're still having first-generation students go to university, first-generation students going to study abroad. And the reality is that then the financial burden comes to us, right? So that's what I would advise young people, is that it is difficult, but just say, I'm giving this 10 years to support my family. As my way of giving back to my family. And then after that, I'll go and do my fashion degree, I'll go and do my photography degree and those kinds of things. Other people might feel very strongly about this, so I want to underscore that this is my personal opinion.
I know that Mugela is asking that one, you know, based on the dermatology and the film question that she had earlier on, but I hope that you are answered, and the viewers at home, most importantly, are finding a voice through the four of you that are seated here next to me. But for now, we will be taking a short ad break. When we return, I know you have more questions, and we will be getting more answers from Fanele Chester, but that is only when we return.
Young Swazis actually inspire me. The amazing things young people are doing out there. I really appreciate how resilient they are despite the challenges that we face in the country. I'd like to encourage them to push. There's light at the end of the tunnel. We're almost there, and I'm very optimistic about the future of Eswatini, looking at the current great young leaders that we have.
I believe the young people of Eswatini are firstly passion-driven. There's so much talent out there, but at times we tend to be ignorant and just, blame the government for not giving us opportunities while they are there. It's just us who need to be out there and actually find them through social media and networks. However, I do believe there is hope for young people in Eswatini and through our commitment, passion, and drive.
I feel like they're very passionate, yes, but when it comes to entrepreneurial skills, we are lacking a lot because there aren't a lot of universities that focus on nurturing that skill, and the ones that are, they only breed out people who are only concerned on working for the men. No one comes out of university and says, oh, listen, maybe there's a shortage of doctors, why don't I go and start my own practice? Everyone wants to line up, really up and work for one person.
I believe that the youth of Eswatini is very much goal-driven. However, we lack a lot of support and resources.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Platform, and today we are joined by Fanele Chester alongside Mugelwe, Kaya, Zandi and Ayanziswa, who have been asking a select questions, but now we're getting into, the juicier part of it. I'm not saying the first part wasn't, but this is where we get to ask the hard questions. We're digging as much as we can out of Fanele, and hopefully we can take it back to the youth of Eswatini. Kaya, I'll hand it over to you to start off our second phase of the questions.
So, Ms. Fanele, I would like to know what you consider the key factors in ensuring the sustainability and long-term impact of youth empowerment activities like the Eswatini Youth Empowerment Program.
That's a really good question. And last year we actually hosted at Waterford, I believe, was it 10 AAP graduates. I think the first thing is that the quality of education that the graduates are coming up with when they go to employers needs to really be kicked up the notch, because then that will make the program more sustainable by converting those graduates into employees or into employment opportunities if the value is very clear to the employers on that. Yes. So at the moment, I think that the program is great, but we need our institutions to relook at their programs and the quality of the programs that they are offering graduates with, firstly. And then the second part is that employers just need to pay for interns, right? This is not a program that can only be funded by the UN or UNDP in perpetuity. We need to provide internship opportunities for students that can lead to employment opportunities later. So I'm very happy that the number of corporates that now offer graduate internships, but smaller companies, that is not a structured program. Maybe we need a structured program for them to recruit graduates that they themselves as companies will be paying for. Yeah.
Okay, my question is basically, I think I'm speaking for a lot of people as a UWC hopeful, and is as follows. What common mistakes or pitfalls do us as young people, fresh from high school, make when we apply for scholarships? And secondly, how does TKI help overcome those challenges?
All right, I'll start with the second part. TKI tries to provide as much information as possible before you submit your information. And that is our way of helping students know what it is that they're applying for. It is then up to students to follow that advice or not. So the first pitfall is students not following the instructions, or not even knowing what they're applying for. They're just applying for a scholarship. Every single scholarship has a mission that they're trying to address, right? Yes. For UWC, it's a specific mission. For ESCOM, it's a specific mission. So I think that students need to be very clear what they're applying for and aligning their application to what the mission of that particular scholarship is. But obviously, students are not going to be able to even apply for the scholarships if they don't meet their requirements, right? Yeah. And the primary requirements are your Form 5 grades. So if you start thinking about applying for a scholarship after you've written your Form 5 exam, that's a problem. because you might not meet those grade requirements after the fact, right? So I think pitfalls is just students not being very clear about what the purpose of their education is, and that having a lot of downstream effects on how they're applying for opportunities, whether they have the grades that are needed to apply for the scholarships, and then just being clear about following the instructions when they're applying.
Thank you.
So my question will be based on your experience at United Nations Eswatini when you're working on partnerships and resource mobilization. So what advice would you give to someone who's aspiring to work at the UN?
Yes. I'll speak from my personal experience. What worked for me is that I volunteered for the UN for a while before I actually applied for a role. So by the time I applied, I sort of had some kind of information and knowledge about the organization. So when the new resident coordinator joined Eswatini, she recruited a group of women to hold the first ever women's conference by the UN in the country. So my first volunteering opportunity was organizing that conference from the ground up for free. By the way, I was a volunteer, so I wasn't getting paid. But that really allowed me to network within the institution, get to know people, get to know the issues that are topical to the UN. So I think that's just being visible and being active. There are a lot of opportunities. I think there's a climate parliament through the UN, and there might be a couple of other opportunities through the UN. I think there's also a women's fellowship in the UN through the UNDP. I think it's a 12-month fellowship. So whenever applying to any mission-driven organization, you need to have a set of experiences that are aligning you to the mission of that organization. And the best way to get those opportunities or those experiences is by volunteering.
I like that you speak about volunteering so highly, but we cannot ignore the fact that income is for our well-being. You know, everyone needs to earn. What are some of the careers that you think will remain relevant in the next 10 years? And which fields should young people look at for high income opportunities? We get the income part, but like high income opportunities.
All right, I'll start with the high income opportunities, anything to do with engineering, right? A lot of careers are being transformed by technology very, very actively. And if they're not being transformed by technology, a lot of industries are being transformed, which means that there might be new jobs that are coming up that didn't exist. And which may mean that some jobs will start being phased out because of these new jobs that are coming out. So for all of the students who are like, maths is not for me, the world in which we're going into is a world that is really run by careers that have to do with maths. This could be in the humanities. This could be in commercial subjects. Certainly, this could be in the sciences, right? This could be in fields that you couldn't imagine, banking. Like, if you look at the careers that are being advertised by banks right now, it's what? It's data scientists, business intelligence, right? So it's all of those people who have done some kind of math or statistics or data science in university. So those are the careers that are to look forward to into the future. So overcome your fear of maths as much as possible.
And not to belittle any other career or profession that anyone else was looking at. But Mugelo, we'll move on over to you to put your next question.
What key lessons did you learn while studying abroad, and how can Emaswatis implement them into their own journeys?
Right. The thing that I realized about living and studying abroad is that everywhere else in the world, everything is driven by merit. In our part of the world, it's still about, you know, relationships, and relationships are still very important, but you really need to be a hard worker, and you need to really be self-driven to be a hard worker. When you go and study abroad, you'll find that there's a participation grade. Just showing up to class is 10% of the grade. So this thing of I'll see you at the exam already knocks off 10% of your grade just by showing up to class, right? So the world around us is very, very merit-driven, which means that Emaswati need to be aware that you have to be hardworking, you have to be driven by excellence, you have to be driven by performance, not by personality, not by anything else. So if you can embrace like being very self-motivated and self-organized at this age, not waiting for your parents to tell you, go and study, not waiting for a teacher to tell you, you know, there's a test coming up, go and study. Just knowing that this is my schedule. 2 months from now, I have an exam, or 2 months from now, I have a big presentation, I'm at work. Knowing that for yourself and starting to work early in advance, I think this is something that I really learned a lot. I think I ascribe a lot of my work ethic now to my experience studying, especially in the US. My brain is just switched on in that way. I don't need to be told to do things. I'm probably going to be the one who's proactive in doing things. And I think that is what has opened a lot of doors for me. Yeah.
Well said.
There's a lot of young people who are looking to create initiatives that are impactful in their communities, but they have limited resources. What advice would you give them?
I really love this question because the role that I hold at Waterford right now is being CAS coordinator or head of community service. And my job is to teach our students exactly that, right? I think the first thing that young people have to overcome is that you don't need to have money in order to do something. You actually don't, right? If your community has a church building, a school, that's a free venue already, right? You don't have to pay for that. It's really more about figuring out, as young people, what do we want to do? I think that is actually the most important question. So if your thing is being the green guy or environmental management, or in your case, finance or film, right? With film, if you have a phone, you can already shoot a short film in your community, right? If you have a phone and you can publish it on YouTube, both of those things are free. So overcoming this sense that you need to be Patrice Motsepe in order to do something, and really tackling the more important question of, but do I actually want to do something? Or do I want that to be someone else's problem and they should do something and I should just be a beneficiary? That is actually the most important question that young people need to think about. Do they care enough about their communities to be agents of change, or they've just become like, you know what, government this, government that. Exactly. If they care about their communities, they'll be able to do something. Yeah.
Okay, well said, ma'am. My question is somewhat delved deeper into our African setting where our parents love to support their kids every best way possible. My question is, parents often play a significant role in trying to choose careers for their children. How do you think, as a higher education specialist, how do you think it influences the young people, especially when they are not passionate about their field that they are being pushed towards, especially now when we're talking about in the workspace, post-university, post-high school. Yes, how does that influence the young person? Yes.
I mean, as a parent, I would say listen to your parents. I think it's really important that parents and children have open conversations. Because I think that if you ask your mother or your father or your brother, whatever the case may be, why they are saying this to you, it might sort of make you understand where they are coming from. It might be that they are trying to protect you. It might be that they are seeing something that you might not be seeing. Do you know what I mean? It might be that they followed their passion and now they're thinking, actually, maybe I could have done things differently. Again, I'm speaking as a very pragmatic person. I would think that listening to your parents is probably going to help you more than not listeing to them. Right?
In the long term.
I think as young people, we've been told this story of follow your passion for so long, but I don't think we've had critical conversations about the price that you have to pay for following your passion, right?
Yes, right?
And it's been like a zero-sum conversation that follow your passion or you'll be unhappy, right? But is there a way for you to follow your passion and still lead a dignified life, right? Is there a way for you, as I mentioned earlier, that you can have hobbies and also have a career that allows you to pay your bills.
Yeah.
So I think that there is a happy balance there. But the first thing is starting by having conversations.
Okay.
My advice would be certainly do things that you are good at. This is what I would say,
Yeah.
right? So if you're good in math, if you're good in the sciences, if you're good in writing, if you're good in history, play to your strengths. If you're good at something, you're more likely than not to be successful in it.
Yeah.
And then if you are lucky, that is also your passion. But if it's not your primary passion, although if you're good at it, I would question if why is it not your passion? Find another way of incorporating it in our lives. As I mentioned, the country that we live in, we still carry the burden of developing our families.
Yeah.
We're not yet at a place where we are a country where we have inheritances and trusts that are going to pay.
Yes, true.
We're not there yet, you know. So we still have to do the really hard work of building the foundation so that the kids that come afterwards, the generation that come afterwards, have more of the freedom of choice than we have
did,
right now.
yes.
Before we get into your questions, Andy, we will be taking another short ad break. And when we return, we're just talking about the person that mentored you, while now you're mentoring us, but who is behind Fanele, you know, pushing and being so passionate about the things she does. But that is only when we return.
As a young person, I've noticed that there's not enough people in the political space. So in the next 5 years, I'm definitely looking forward to join that space and be a member of parliament for my community. That's the trajectory I'd like to continue on in the space.
As a young person in the Kingdom of Eswatini, I plan to make it big in the world of finance, in the world of climate action, as well as youth development. I plan to use my acquired skills to inspire other young people out there to just make Eswatini greater again, as far as sustainability, youth development, as well as other, emerging stuff, AI, all of that. I plan to be one person who can inspire other young people out there and just make Eswatini greater once again.
They say the sky is the limit, so I'm hoping to make a movie soon that's going to reach international recognition and maybe, if it's in God's plan, get an Oscar. But right now, my friends and I are starting something. It's basically a youth empowerment project. It's linked to the question where you asked me if I have any initiatives going on. So yeah, I'll be vague about that too.
I look forward to building a career that combines the business acumen with charity work and the legal part of the business sector.
Well, I've always been fascinated about money, about finance, about accounting, so I thought this would just be the best career path for me as an uprising student.
Hello and welcome back. We are still seated with Fanele Chester, and this has been a mentoring session for you. You are our mentor now, and of course the viewers at home. But I'm sure that you also had your own mentor, or you do currently have your own mentor. Can you share pieces of advice that you've received from that mentor that changed your life?
Yeah, I've been asked this question once before, and I was a bit nervous in responding to it. I think in the past it was called role models.
Yes, role models.
I don't have role models. I think that my approach is to learn different things from different people. I haven't found one person that sort of encapsulates all of the things that I would be looking for. And honestly, sometimes we just expect too much from people, right? Yeah. So from one person, I might learn their communication approach. From another person, I might learn how to start an NGO. I think that I prefer to see people as human beings who are flawed. And that also means that I'm not disappointed when they don't live up to my expectations, because they're human beings. So I really would coach people against this idea of role models. I think that if there's, as King Sopuza said, if there's a good thing that you can learn from a person, learn that good thing, right, and keep it moving, right, than to expect everything from one person. We are too small a country to be piling everything on Glenewe Fagote. She must be this and that and that and that. We must pile everything on Polilesha country. She must be, like, there's different things you can get from different people. So that has always been my approach. Any person that is doing well in something, I see what is one thing that I can learn from them. Yeah.
So reflecting on your journey and everything you have gone through, what is the one piece of advice you wish you had received earlier in your professional life?
I think that I would have appreciated someone telling me earlier in my life to also be pragmatic when I'm choosing my careers. When I finished Form 5, I had a couple of opportunities for me. I'd applied to UNESCO, I got into engineering. I was doing A-levels at St. Mark's, and I also applied to the United World Colleges, right? My favorite subject was physics. That's why I chose to apply for engineering. But I think that I didn't have enough career guidance, which is actually what inspired me to start TKI, to stick with that. So when I moved into a different opportunity, which was UWC, I completely abandoned my interest in physics, and I became very passionate about economics because it was something new. So I think that my life would have probably gone in a very different direction. I'm not saying that is a bad thing, but I wasn't very intentional about picking my career because, and this is what happens when you are like Mugelo, when you are good at every subject. It's the paradox of choice. So I wish that someone would be like, yes, finally you can do everything, but this is what's going to help you build a stable foundation for yourself in the future. I would have really appreciated that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow. In empowering the girl child, do you think we have forgotten the boy child?
Yes. Next question. As someone who, has been interviewing students for scholarships and for other opportunities for about 10 years now, we have done an excellent job in empowering girls. And sometimes I find that the boys who are sitting in front of me in an interview for something really important has not been given enough self-empowerment of their identity. And then you find that boys are more susceptible to peer pressure because that's where they are getting that kind of empowerment of the self. So I'm really finding that we need to catch up in that aspect. Just as we have opportunities for girls in STEM and that kind of thing, we need to have the same for boys in STEM, for example. Boys don't have enough spaces where they can be vulnerable and talk about things and receive mentorship. And when they do find that those spaces, I mean, thankfully we have Gwaka Invota, for example, but they're focusing on their key mandate. We need spaces for boys to talk about other things that are important to them, as we do with girls, So I am definitely seeing the boy child getting left behind. We've reached gender parity, but if you're looking at the number of graduates, there's more female graduates now than there are male, right? And I feel like we've almost made boys feel bad for being boys or for being male, for example. So certainly I think that my strong feeling is that we need to do more for the boy child.
If you had a chance to change one thing about the way we mentor young people, what would it be?
I think that we could be more. I mean, I've said this word several times today. I think that we could. I'll use a different word. I think we could be more practical. I won't say pragmatic anymore. I think we could be more practical. I think we should just be more honest with young people about how difficult, not how difficult, how much hard work is required for you to make it in whatever that you're doing. I think we tell the story through rose-colored glasses. Do you know what? The way that I sort of ask myself this question is, like if I answered Oprah is my role model, for example, the way that I asked myself the question is, but how did she make money? I actually one time sat on Google and I Googled, where did Oprah get her money? There were less than 5 articles that detailed she did this and she did that and she did that. It's not clear. We don't know the sacrifices that she made to get to where she is now. And I think our mentorship needs to reflect all of the sleepless nights, all of the sacrifices that you have to make to be successful, so that young people are clear that if I want to be the next top DJ in Africa, what does that mean actually? How many hours must I be practicing on the turntables in order to have an excellent set? How much does a turntable cost? How much do I have to work cleaning houses, looking after babies in order to afford my first turntable, for example? So I think our mentorship needs to reveal the difficulties and the challenges that young people have to go through as part of the process in order for them to get to where whoever they're looking up to is already.
With the growing number of graduates in Eswatini and an incredibly low absorption rate into the job market, what do you think are improvements or initiatives that you can recommend for our education system, therefore to create sustainable opportunities for young people within the kingdom?
The low absorption rate is because the qualifications that young people are coming out of institutions in the country are not what employers want. Firstly. And secondly, it's because young people are not taught employability skills. So they might come out with a qualification like accounting and finance, which is what the employer wants, but the young people does not know how to behave at work. Right? I think that the employability skills should be part of just like a foundational education program in every single education institution. It must teach you how to get and hold on to a job, just as well as it's teaching you how to start businesses. We're not doing the other side of, for those who don't want to be entrepreneurs, which is okay. Most people in this country who are high net worth individuals are employed. They are not entrepreneurs because of the kind of economy that we have. So I think one, teach employability skills. When you go to the office, don't come with a chain, don't come with a short skirt. Know how to relate to people, know how to write an email, right? But also, whatever qualification that you're coming out with, ESHEC, which is the higher education council in the country, has to ensure that it's meeting the standards of industry. If I am hiring a marketing graduate from UNESWA and they don't know how to do social media analytics, that person is not of value to me as an employer in this day and age. So I think that all of our programs have to be reviewed by some industry standard to match what actually employers are looking for, and the young people need to be taught. There must be a module in university or in college that is teaching you workplace etiquette. I think both of those things might lead to an increase in the absorption rate of graduates in the country.
And, you know, speaking about the high unemployment rate in the country, what advice would you give to people acquiring more degrees?
I think before someone stacks their qualifications in order to sort of provide some kind of employment protection for them, they need to identify what might be the possible gaps in their skills, not in their qualification, in their skills and in their competencies, right? Because someone might have a master's degree, someone might have a PhD degree, but they don't know how to manage a team, or they don't know how to manage a project, for example, right? I think like this question of micro-credentials needs to be unpacked a bit more, because it's not that the higher you go in qualifications, you have all of the different skills and competencies that that particular role that you're going for needs. For example, someone who's graduating from UNESCO, for example, will not have taken any kind of social media analytics module because it's not offered. And then they go and want to work for the marketing department at MTN. What is the composition of that team? right? Most of it is digital marketing. So if you don't have any experience or skills or competence in digital marketing, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, every response brings out a new question, but unfortunately, guys, we have to wrap up our session. Thank you so much once again to all of you for joining me here. I hope that, you know, everything that was shared on this table will be of benefit to the young Eswatini that are looking to get into different professions, and there will be more talks coming up, so we will be getting different pieces of information from different people. This is the last time you're seeing these faces, but thank you so much once again to you, Fanele. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. You know, you are a beacon of hope to most people in this country. I can't say all because I can't speak for everyone, but to most people, you are definitely a beacon of hope. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Tapelo. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you.
My key takeaways that I gained from these conversations are the insights Fanele Chester had on running an organization in the country, what are the key things to make it survive and the sustainability of it, while also pursuing a professional career.
From the conversation we've just had, I've learned the importance of discipline, vision, and creating meaningful relationships.
I learned that before you apply for a scholarship or for a university in particular, you need to actually do your research and know what a scholarship is and why you're applying for it and know exactly what you want to do. And just to strengthen your application, you should do some volunteer work.
I have learned that young people need to do a lot of research about scholarship opportunities and how better they can better themselves in the workplace.
The platform provides an excellent opportunity for young people to link up with other exceptional leaders who are in the space, as well as meeting your mentor who will help you guide and grow in the professional as well as your personal career.
Such programs will expose the young people to such, meaningful conversations. They are going to be exposed to experts in some fields and therefore gain insight into what they want to be. Therefore, we believe this show and many others are a beacon of hope for young Eswatini out there.
The platform provides an excellent opportunity for networking and mentorship, which are skills that are lacking in formal education, yet they're important for building successful careers for the youth.
The platform provides an excellent opportunity for networking and mentorship, and it also enlightens the people of Eswatini, because a lot of people believe that as long as I have good grades then I will get a scholarship, which is not the case. You also need some extracurricular activities which will support your grades.